Hi and welcome to another edition of What's in the Box. So what have we got this time? Well, based on the interest that I received following the Waterloo diorama set with all the painted figures, I thought I'd show another one that I've done. This is the World War I Western Front set. So I don't have the box for it, but I've got all the stuff from inside. So let's take a look. Now, World War I had always been a conflict that had interested me, and I suspect it was probably because of the fact when I was a kid, I remember watching the BBC's Great War series, all 26 episodes of that, and I was always fascinated by those sort of black and white images. And it's something I've it's always stuck with me for some reason or other. So when this set came out in 2010, I just had to have it. I was obviously partway through my Napoleonic painting and thinking about what my next project would be. And to be honest, this is a much easier project because there isn't actually quite so much to paint. You'll see that on the front of the box, it's got obviously the British attacking the Germans. I understand from looking at the Plastic Soldier website that the chronology behind all of this is totally wrong because the outfits they're wearing are very much related to the start of the war, whereas you've obviously got tanks in there as well. But it looks good, I think, and I think it sort of captures the scene quite nicely. And I do like these Airfix sets where they include the actual acrylic paints as well. Sadly, not the primer, but I'd already learnt from the Napoleonic set exactly what I was meant to do there. So on the back of the box, it obviously shows you the diorama you get, and within this box you get two sets of figures. You get the British and the Germans, and obviously you get a male and a female tank as well. So let's have a look at some of the soldiers I've painted. So let's start off with the Germans. Now you'll see, unlike the Napoleonic, I haven't done these in rows of twos. I've just done single rows, and part of the reason for that was so that actually I could put them into the actual diorama and into the trenches as well. So I'll show you that in a moment. But yeah, one of the things I did try to do with this lot was actually paint them in a pretty muddy sort of scene. I've actually used the bottom of the box that actually got of this to actually use as the base of it because it's actually really sturdy cardboards. So that's where my box has gone anyway. Let's walk through each of these in turn. So they were fairly straightforward to paint. I mean, they're fairly basic in terms of the actual elements on it. And again, I'd used eye to paint this one. I hadn't used my magnifying glass, I think, on this particular set. So I suspect at close up, some of these lines are going to look a little bit ropey. I think probably the harder ones were actually the guys with the flat caps, because they'd obviously got the red beading around the base of their cap, and also they've got the red line down their trousers as well. So that was a bit of a challenge. I was always struck by these sets at what to actually do with the guys that were surrendering anyway, whose side to put them on, whether to put them on the attacking force or the defending force. Bit similar with the dead ones as well. So one of the things you might notice on some of these is that the blue has gone a little bit sort of faded. It shows a little bit more on the British forces, but part of the reason for that was I'd used matte varnish. Hurrah! So after my last effort where I used gloss on everything, I realised the error of my way and bought some matte varnish and sprayed all my figures. And when it all dried, it ended up with a really weird sort of musty film over it. It sort of really dulled the colours out. So I wasn't that impressed with it. So I ended up having to touch up some of the soldiers again and then respray them with a different varnish. But it took me quite some time to do all of that. Anyway, that's the German set all run through. And I think they look pretty good, really. I quite like those ones. We then turn to the British forces, and these are the ones, as I say, are going to look a little bit more sort of, I guess, I don't know, faded is probably the best word in terms of the colour. But you'll see I've done again them in single rows of 5. I've put them on much thinner bits of cardboard for some reason or other compared to the others, so I don't know why I did that. But anyway, these are all fairly straightforward to paint as well, and yeah, I quite enjoyed doing these ones too. Again, a whole range of characters here. So you've obviously got the guys with the semaphores, and I particularly like the guys with the grenades. It's funny, having taken photos and seeing them all blown up on my computer, I suddenly realised just actually how bad some of this painting is. I've either missed bits or I've gone over wrong bits of the area with different coloured paint, or in this case I've also missed loads of moustaches. I painted a whole load on the Germans, but for some reason or other I seem to have missed virtually all of the British except for the officer. So there we go. Certainly shows the value of having a magnifying glass, although nowadays I actually need it anyway just to see. I've never been one for painting eyes and all that sort of stuff on small figures. I just think it's just too much detail, but certainly moustaches is within my skill set. And there you've got the chaps running along with their reel of barbed wire. This is one of the sets that I've never actually played a war game with my son Ryan on, so I'm not sure quite how well it lends itself to doing that with this, but yeah, it's visually I think they look good. I mean, from a diorama perspective I think they're perfect. We then have the two tanks, the male and the female one. So here's the male. So again, it's quite nice. It's nice that you've got these, obviously, I think these are probably machine guns, were they, or were they cannons? I don't know which they had on World War One, but they nicely made this one. I think this is a fairly simple kit, to be honest. It wasn't that difficult. Probably the hardest bit was this, trying to make sure that I didn't glue that fixed so that it actually did move up and down as it went along. But yeah, I think that came out quite nice. And then you've got the female with obviously these double cannons or machine guns or whatever they are. And that was it. It was really strange that it didn't come with more. So I still had the World War I Royal Artillery set from when I was a kid. So this is the box here. So this set I really actually liked, and again, you'll remember if you've seen the previous version that my great-grandfather was in the Royal Artillery as a Brigadier General actually in World War One. So it's nice to think that there's a sort of a link there. But yeah, I obviously made the point of actually painting this particular set as well. So I'll show you this one, and these actually came up much better, probably because I wanted to do a better job on it. And I'd actually realised that the varnish was a bit of a nightmare, but I was actually really pleased at how these ones finished up. And you'll see I've actually got extra cannons here because for some reason or other I had two sets of these, so I thought I'd make the most of it and have lots more cannons and really give the Germans a hard time. Because let's face it, with two tanks, the infantry and effectively 4 cannons, it was going to be pretty tough. So yeah, these I think really, I'm really pleased with this particular set. This is certainly one of the better ones, and actually one of the sets of cannons is actually on display in my bookshelf that you see behind me when I start these videos. And I did actually paint another tank as well. So this is it here. It's another one of the male ones. Airfix had it on offer I think for about £6, so that was the actual box it came with. But the only difference here is that actually the colour of the actual tread is different. So don't know why that is. It's a sort of a much darker grey. The previous one was a much lighter grey. But I really like this, and again I sort of thought I'd just do it just to make another model, to be honest. Now of course if you're into your Airfix, you'd know that Airfix also issued the French infantry as well. So this is them here. This is again ones from my youth. I never got around to painting these, and again, like I said before, when I was a kid I tended to just rip them straight off the sprue, so they've still got these horrible bits on the end which you obviously need to cut off. But once you've done that, it makes painting them an absolute beast. So I just really have got no appetite whatsoever to paint them, and I think again that would give the Germans an even harder time, wouldn't it, if I was going to do battle with them. But again, it was a nice set, and I believe that these came out in 1966, so the actual model quality for these actually I think is actually pretty good. And also there was a set of American infantry as well, and similarly I've not painted those either, so I get fed up seeing all the extra flash on some of the figures as well, so I think that's probably put me off. Again, from a timing perspective, it didn't sit with the uniforms for the first lot. Now, one of the other things I really like is the actual Airfix buildings that they sell. So here's a whole range of them that I've painted. I think this was a cafe or a shop of some form or another. And you know, when you put these on a diorama, and they really sort of make the whole sort of visuals stand out well, I think. So I've got another building here. Got no recollections of what this one is. Some sort of French farmhouse probably, I guess. There's another one here. A lot of detail went into these. I like the fact that you've obviously got the railings that are all bent and buckled as well. I think this was a workshop of some form or another, so it probably lends itself better to a World War II diorama, but again, looked good, I thought. There's another sort of stone building. And finally, probably the best one of the group, I think, is this one here, which is the church building. So this was actually the first one that I painted. So I really like this one. I think visually this is great. And for some reason or other, Airfix recently have been selling these off at really cheap prices. They've obviously got a lot of stock and just wanted to get rid of them. But I mean, I got them pretty cheaply. Now, you might remember when I showed you the back of the packet, it showed a diorama. And sure enough, this is what the diorama looks like. So you've got these two bases, and they're exactly the same. And obviously the intention is you can put one facing the other. So you've got loads of things to put in here. So you can obviously put the cannon there and soldiers here and all that sort of stuff. But I didn't use this because I'm not a great fan of this plastic, as I've mentioned before, because of the fact all the sort of flecks and everything that you put on it will just sort of peel off. And also, you've still got to cut it anyway to make the two bits join. So anyway, I've kept them. What I did do, however, was get this. This is a base diorama board. Now, I'd like to claim credit for having created this, but actually I ended up going to a war game convention and somebody was selling this for £10, and I just thought, you know what, it's just too good to throw away, because the detail that they'd gone to in terms of putting all these sandbags and the wire and trenches and everything else was just fantastic. So I thought visually it would look quite good, especially when you start to put some of the sort of buildings on as well. So here are some shots anyway showing what the end result looks like, and yeah, I think it comes over quite well actually. I hope you agree, but it certainly was one of those things where once I'd done it all and finished it, I felt quite satisfied, and then it all got boxed up and put in the loft. So probably explains why I've never got round to doing wargaming. So overall, really enjoyed this. I thought it was a much simpler set to paint, certainly better than the Napoleonic ones. I'd obviously learnt part of the lesson around the varnishing this time, so I was actually using matte varnish, and this has certainly helped me as I've sort of developed some of the other sort of paintings that I've done. So I will share some future ones as well from some other sets and dioramas, but for me, I really like this set, you know. Forgetting about all the inconsistencies with all the time periods in World War One, I think this looks visually really strong when you see all the actual figures out and, you know, the actual scene in action. So I hope you've enjoyed watching this as well. Please don't hesitate to leave comments, and if you'd like to see more, please let me know. And yeah, thanks very much indeed for watching.